Welcome back to the deep dive. So you've handed us a really delightful theme today. It's all about this journey from a seemingly, well, an embarrassing, maybe even a ridiculous idea
All the way to profound success.
to profound, meaningful success. We're drawing from this material called The Alchemy of Unlikely Success.
That's right. And our mission really is to give you a kind of blueprint. What happens when you decide to just take the leap on an idea you think is genuinely, certifiably dumb.
Right.
We want to unpack that psychological shift and the practical steps you need to take to turn a joke into something real, an institution even.
And we're kicking this whole thing off with, I think, the perfect case study from the source, a guy named Chris O'Malley.
Oh, it's a great story.
He creates this massive annual city holiday event based entirely on the tacky, ugly Christmas sweater. It's one of those origin stories you read, and
Yeah.
you have to laugh at how simple it is and how likely it was to fail.
Well, and what's so fascinating about O'Malley's journey, and it's really why it's the core of this source material, is that it perfectly illustrates this central idea that success often hides in the ideas that make you blush.
The ones you're afraid to even say out loud.
Exactly. The ugly sweater parade is the perfect example of taking that bold leap of embarrassment. You just have to commit, even when every part of your brain is telling you this is career suicide, or at least it's going to be bad social media fodder.
Okay, so let's unpack that. We have to start with how this source even defines a dumb idea. Because it's not just an idea that doesn't work out, it's one that's built on being absurd from the get-go.
Precisely. The authors define these starting points as concepts that are, and I'm quoting here, unlikely, embarrassing, or downright ridiculous.
Okay.
They just defy common sense. For O'Malley, the whole foundation was so simple it's almost a myth. It began as a dare. A triple dog dare, actually, between friends.
Just to do what?
To just parade around downtown during the holidays wearing the ugliest sweaters they could possibly find.
And I think the emotional part is so key here. It's not just that the idea itself was silly, it's that he and his friends felt silly doing it. That seems to be the engine.
Absolutely. When he first told people, they laughed. Like they laughed hard.
Of course.
They called it what it was, a joke.
Yeah.
But this is the crucial moment for anyone listening. That internal feeling of awkwardness, of self-consciousness,
Mm.
you have to override it with action.
Mm.
O'Malley talks about that feeling of, what on earth am I doing? This is mortifying. But the second they stepped out onto the street,
Mm.
the public reaction just changed everything.
Okay, so tell us about that first little spark, the small group walking. What happened?
The validation was just instantaneous. It was pure, spontaneous joy. People on the street saw them. They started smiling, taking pictures.
Oh, wow.
And then some people just started walking with them,
Huh.
laughing along. It tapped into something universal. The relief of just being silly.
Especially during a season that can be so serious. So serious. And that immediate, visible, positive feedback. Strangers smiling at you. That was all the proof he needed. It went from a dare between a few friends to a full-on community thing.
And that's the shift. That's what takes it from a one-off joke to something they want to do again.
They had fun, so they decided, let's repeat it.
But repeating it means you have to plan, even a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
How did he go from, 6 people to trying to get 50?
The first steps were so basic, which is a great lesson in itself. He just made some low-tech flyers, put up a few posts on social media, and here's a critical detail. The public reaction to the promotion was still total skepticism.
They thought the flyers were a joke, too.
Totally. They thought it was ironic or like a setup for a hidden camera show or something. They did not take it seriously.
Which is actually a huge advantage, isn't it? The expectations are so low.
A massive advantage. If you launch a serious startup and it fails, the world is watching. But if you launch a ridiculous ugly sweater walk and 50 people show up,
That's a huge win. It's a colossal victory. It sets the baseline for success incredibly low. The organic energy does all the work. So they started small, 50 people came the second time, and boom, the event was born.
but that's when the problems start.
That's when the friction begins.
Yeah, okay, this brings us to that second part, facing the friction. The source is full of what it calls these raw, honest journeys, and, well, resistance is inevitable.
For O'Malley, it came from two places, and they were connected. External criticism and the internal doubt that it creates.
Right.
Externally, as the crowd got bigger, it wasn't just quirky fun anymore. It was becoming potentially disruptive.
So local businesses maybe weren't thrilled.
Some citizens, some businesses started complaining. They said it was silly or disruptive to downtown traffic, to commerce.
And that's a tough thing to hear when your whole premise is just about having fun.
It really is. It challenges the whole point. And that's where the internal battle really started for him. O'Malley admitted to just major self-doubt.
Yeah.
The sources talk about things like bad weather, which, is a big deal when you're asking people to wear wool sweaters outside,
Right.
or just the fear of low turnout. It made him question everything, like, why am I bothering with this joke? And that self-doubt, that's the valley where so many good ideas go to die.
But the really practical wisdom for you, the listener, comes from the logistical problems, specifically the one that almost killed the whole thing. Let's dig into the permit crisis.
This is where the comedy stops and the serious part begins. The first parade was tiny, just a few dozen people, so nobody cared. But as it grew, the city noticed.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
The source says he got a call from a city official. And they basically said, congratulations, you have an unpermitted, unauthorized street closure event, and you're about to be shut down.
For an ugly sweater walk, the irony, what did that mean, practically? Were they going to fine him?
They threatened to shut down all future events,
Yeah.
period, which meant this community, this tradition he'd accidentally built, would just vanish. And that's when O'Malley had this sudden realization. He wasn't just organizing a fun
He was
walk.
operating a public assembly.
He was operating a public assembly, which requires serious bureaucracy. He had to pivot overnight from being the chief sweater officer to the chief bureaucracy navigator.
So what did he have to learn? He has no experience in this. How do you go from daring your friends to filling out municipal paperwork?
Source points to three big things he had to figure out, and fast. First, he had to learn the language of city planning, risk management. He's talking about insurance, sanitation, traffic control.
Things that have nothing to do with ugly sweaters.
Exactly. Second, he had to spend a lot of time and eventually money on getting the permits, which means fees, liability insurance. He had to find a way to fund the serious side of his silly idea.
And what did that do to him psychologically? That must have been draining.
Oh, he said he absolutely wanted to quit.
Yeah.
The fun was gone. It was all paperwork and dealing with City Hall. He saw his passion project just turning into a giant headache.
So the real moment of near collapse wasn't bad weather.
It was the red tape.
But the source is really clear on what kept him going. It wasn't his ego. It was the people.
It was the community, exactly. That core group who loved it. They were the reason he pushed through the stress. They were messaging him, asking when's the next one. He realized it didn't just belong to him anymore. The community had adopted it. And that proof, the people who showed up, that was the only thing that justified learning about event logistics.
Which brings us to the breakthrough, the turning point. That moment, it goes from a risky idea to a real established thing. What had to happen?
Two things really came together to make it legitimate. First, a local business saw the buzz, they saw the organic popularity, and they offered to sponsor it.
Money.
Money, which was critical. It solved the immediate problem of paying for permits and insurance. But more than that, it gave it legitimacy. A business doesn't sponsor a joke. They sponsor an asset.
And the second thing, the city had to finally say yes.
Yes, they were officially granted a major event permit. And that one piece of paper, it solved the existential threat. It marked the transition from this underground thing to an official tradition.
So once they had the sponsorship and the city's blessing, what happened?
The result was immediate, and it was explosive. The very next year, hundreds of people showed up. It was officially a beloved tradition. The anxiety about turnout was gone.
People weren't just showing up ironically anymore. They were planning for it.
They were looking forward to it. It became a marker for the holiday season. And for O'Malley, the emotional payoff for all that permit stress was seeing that joy, seeing families out there having fun.
It became a piece of the city's culture.
Exactly. And that stability meant he could scale it up smartly. They started adding more structured things like contests.
Oh, like most offensive sweater.
Most offensive sweater, tackiest dance-offs. They brought in music, food vendors. It added complexity, but it also captured more interest.
The genius there is keeping the core spirit, the silliness, but layering on a professional delivery.
Perfectly put. And the ultimate sign of success, really, for any community idea is when it starts to spread. He started getting calls and emails from people in other cities.
No way.
Yeah, asking him for advice. How do we start our own ugly sweater parade?
So if we connect this back to you, the listener, that spread is the proof. A really quirky, unique idea can be replicated because it's so distinct. You can't copy community fun, but you can copy ugly sweater parade logistics.
It's a grassroots blueprint. And there you have the full cycle, the dare, the red tape collapse, the recovery, and then the spread.
So what does this entire messy, frustrating, and ultimately triumphant journey mean for you if you're sitting on your own dumb idea? Let's distill the core advice from all this.
I think we can boil it down to two key things that O'Malley's story proves. First, celebrate your quirks, don't hide them. The very things that made the event seem embarrassing were what made it so visual, so easy to market, and so memorable. That weirdness is your advantage.
We have to stop apologizing for the weirdness of our ideas.
We have to. And second, and this is the most fundamental lesson, don't be afraid to start small, but be prepared to grow big, fast. Success didn't start with a sponsor. It started with 6 friends, and just having the courage to look a little foolish.
That courage to try, that leap is the first step. But the bigger lesson isn't just starting. It's pushing through the friction that a fun idea inevitably creates.
The practical wisdom here is that the people who succeed with these unconventional ideas are the ones who learn to master the very conventional mechanics. You have to be willing to learn about sanitation codes while you're wearing a light-up reindeer on your chest. That contrast, that's where the alchemy is.
So this raises a final important question for you to take with you, based on everything we've just talked about. If Chris O'Malley's Dare can unite a city, navigate bureaucracy, get corporate sponsorship, and even spawn copycats, what silly or embarrassing idea are you holding back right now?
And think about the real cost, not the cost of failure, but the cost of inaction. So many people quit when the fun stops and the paperwork begins. The lesson here is knowing those hurdles are coming the moment the city calls, and accepting that getting to that tedious part is the price you pay to keep your joyous, ridiculous idea alive.
Go find your ugly sweater and maybe start working on that permit application.